Well, all right, you Facebook people out there, I would say you're faceless, but most of you have pictures. Thank goodness, so I know what you all look like. You done created a monster by liking that little video of mine, which was just flawed all to death, and thank you kindly, but here's your reward. It's more of the same, because that's unfortunately what you're going to get. And Andrew Tishner, Andy, my boy, this horn here is waiting for you when you come out to sunny GA. You know where I am. I know that you are like the greatest trumpeter in the world, and I watched you grow up, and your beautiful young sister, Virginia. I send my regards. Young man of the horn, in the footsteps of Louis Armstrong, who I was privileged to meet in 1968 at a hot Garden State Arts Center one July summer, and old exhausted black man took the time to shake a poor little white fella's hand. You know, that was what Louis Armstrong was about. He all those years ago, you think I would ever forget shaking the hand of a man who had the hot fives, you know, came up from New Orleans. All right, well, Andy, that's a little remembrance. What I'm about tonight is playing you the last brag that I wrote. This was before my wife passed. It's actually, I scratched it down and dated it August the 1st of 2015. And it was an attempt to do the impossible, which is to imitate the style. I could say emulate, which would be a more elegant way of saying it, but it's imitate the style of one of the greatest American composers of all time, who I, of course, admire and revere, that being Scott Joplin. Can't be done. Folks, it cannot be done. My best friend in the world, after my wife, Trevor Tishner, father of Virginia and Andrew, who I made reference to, we used to discuss this kind of thing, is why can't anybody else do that? Now, we had James Scott and we had Joe Lamb, and there's a number of other people who came kind of close to that original sound, but the Jock was tough. It rhymes. Anyway, I'm going to demonstrate for you what happens when you try, knowing all of Joplin's music for more than 60 years and having it going on in your head, and you try to have the arrogance and insolence to attempt such a thing of imitating a great composer's style. And if you're patient enough, at the end I might just demonstrate, because over the last 4 years of having this lousy tune in my head stuck, and I had to dig out the chicken scratch because I didn't remember part of it. But anyways, you realize that you can't get there. And I'll show you where all these themes actually came from in Scott Joplin's own music. Now, I titled this Moss Rose rag. This is the cover art that Amanda, my wife, did for it, thinking that, you know, one day and so forth. And it's my favorite flower. It's also known as a portulaca. Now, Joplin, of course, was fond of titling his rags after flowers that he favored as well. So I thought, this being a tribute to Scott Joplin, later being dedicated and rededicated, of course, after the events. Anyway, here's an attempt at trying to emulate the style of Scott Joplin that I put together. It's called Moss Rose's Rag. Take two. folks. I hope you liked it, but ain't nothing new under this sun as far as Scott Joplin is concerned. Let me give you the intro first of all, and where I figured I dreamt that up. Now, understand, I didn't set out to copy this man, who I loved my entire life. You know, the thing is that I have his music in me. I can play nearly all of his tunes, always could. And if I can't play them, I know them inside when I hear them. So they came out in this piece, and it took me a couple of years to figure out where and when, how and why. But, you know, what's this introduction anyway? Well, where might we have heard that before? It's in the same key, after all. That would be a clue. Could it be the introduction to Magnetic Rag? You know, it's a dramatic piece of music, maybe his finest work. Musically, his most fun work is the Maple Leaf Rag, but in terms of, you know, musicality, about what this man was all about, I would always go back to Magnetic Rag as his finest. But, you know, when he wrote Magnetic Rag, that came about the time he was working on the opera Tremontice. And, you know, he was all about drama and the theater, you know, the hot lights and stinky grease paint and all that wonderful stuff that's the theater. And he had that sense of drama, and that's where, if you play his hand-played piano roll, which is one of the few actual true recordings that I know of after a lifetime of studying that stuff, it shows him off, because the intro as it's published in Magnetic Rag is alright, but the way Job played it on the roll is all about the drama. It's all about Tremontice. It's about opera, you know. That's kind of like he plays it. I might have exaggerated a little bit, but anyway, that's where my first, so-called first theme comes from. And the second, well, it's not the first theme, the intro. The first theme, this, you say, oh, that's so beautiful, that's a, you know, a B flat again. Yeah, right. Well, you know, if you put it in C, and you go back to 1907, there's a Joplin piece called Roseleaf Rag, and it's like the same thing. It's that, you know. That's where the first theme comes from. And the second theme, you know where I got that from? It's back to Magnetic Rag again. I mean, Joplin. And Joplin himself ripped it off. It wasn't his to begin with. It was the verse of some old late 1890s song. Ever since ragtime done came to this land. I mean, it's... Well, I remember Max Morass singing that, and it's a, maybe it's a Ben Harney tune, or one of those guys from the late 1890s. And Joplin, of course, that's Magnetic Rag in the second thing. And I'm doing, what am I doing here? Trying to get a little tricky. Which is why I have the chicken scratches, because I can never remember it. And as far as the trio is concerned, you know, all kinds of beautiful wonderment. Put the trills in to make the girls smile. rag, or especially point your attention at Mr. Arthur Marshall, of course, who was a boyhood friend and influence, co-writer of Swipesy Cakewalk with Scott Joplin, you know. Etc. You look at his unpublished stuff, like Silver Rocket, or the published but rare Lily Queen, and you'll find what the trio is all about. So the lesson here, folks, is that ain't nothing new under the sun for those who might have the arrogance that I did and try to, with a lifetime of experience, try to replicate the sound and feeling of Scott Joplin. Now, maybe it's somewhat, you know, it's an okay kind of tune. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't really care. I just wanted it documented. And the playing was bad enough, but it's out there. And if by any chance there happens to be any young folks out there, which I sincerely doubt they'd have the patience to last this long, I doubt that maybe anybody might, but if there are, I want you to know something, that there ain't nothing that you can't do. Young men and women of America, there is absolutely nothing that you cannot do. You just have to want to do it. You have to think and search your insides for what speaks to you in this lifetime. The only one you got, so use it the best you can, right? Search out your inner voice and put it to work. There's an easy way to do it, but most of you guys and gals choose a harder path. You choose to sit and rely on those gifts that are born in and hone them to a fine point and get as best as you're going to get. And that's where you'll be. And whatever it is you're doing for a living, you know, you'll get to a certain plateau of expertise, and more power to you, and you'll serve all humanity and so forth and so on, and maybe make a living and feed your family. But there's an easier way. I should just ask God for help, because, and those who would be so rude as to want to laugh at me, you go ahead and laugh, because check me out. All right, check out rocket science and check out music and I have a whole bunch of things. So I'm telling you, from my perspective, which isn't that of a teenager, okay? It's a guy who's had a few knocks throughout life, and God is real, and everything that we do that's worth a gosh darn in this lifetime, and it might take all of your lifetimes to realize it, but everything we do is, it's not about us. It's about what the good Lord says, you know, what he gives to us. He puts his hand on our shoulder, and if your aspiration is to write some 2-bit piece of music like this, or a great concerto, let me tell you that he's got a trillion waiting for you that have never been heard, that are truly original and not some twisted remake of a composer dead over 100 years. He's got a trillion more to lay on you. And it's not just music I'm talking about. It's everything. It's whatever you apply yourself. Go out and figure that you're going to cure cancer, because I know it can be cured. I know it can be cured. I don't think that people deathly sick of cancer, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe by God's grace, may they be saved. But future generations, that can be eradicated with the science that we have today. And that's all these toys that you guys play with, these camera phones and all your high and mighty computers. They're just a means to an end. Throw them out the window when you're done with them. When you get your feet on the top of the mountain, throw them out the window. When you cure cancer, throw them out the window. They're just a rotten means to an end. Don't spend your life playing games on them. Talk to people on the other side of the world. That's worth doing. Better yet, knock on your neighbor's door and see what he or she is doing and thinking about life. You know, anyways, the message is clear. Ask for help. All he wants is you to ask and say thanks. Okay, enough from the den of who cares anyway. Georgia, Georgia, signing off. Good night, see tightsy. Bye bye.